Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, Homoeopathy Super Sessions by Dr. Jargos. Today I've got one more request to do J.H. Allen, the chronic miasm, Psora and Pseudo-Psora, the chapter Bacteria and the relationship to pathology. Well, any doctrine which existed to the pathological school of medicine is the doctrine of microorganisms. So they're saying that another doctrine was there which was associated with the pathological school of medicine, and that was to deal with the microorganisms. The above doctrine threatened the dynamic doctrine of Hahnemann. So the doctrine of the pathological or the microorganisms, it threatened the dynamic nature or the dynamic doctrine of Dr. Hahnemann, which he had introduced. The dynamic doctrine stated that disease is nothing more than the disturbance of the life force. So the dynamic doctrine stated that the disease is but a disturbance or you could say a deviation of the life force. Thus, the homeopathic remedy covers all the aspects of disease irrespective of its origin, even to the microorganism. So the dynamic nature of the disease, it will cover up everything irrespective of its origin. The life principle, when restored, or when the deranged life force resumes its normal function, it puts an end to the existence of the perversion, that is the microorganism. So the life principle, which was deranged, and now it has been restored, or it is resumed its normal functions, then it will put an end to the existence of the microorganism. So when the vital force has been deranged, and now with the help of medicines, dynamized medicines, when given, the vital force resumes its normal function, health is obtained, and as a result of which the microorganisms are no longer existing. Thus, to conclude, the expression was due to the existence of the perversion. So we conclude that whatever expression was there, whatever signs and symptoms were there, they were because of the existence of these microorganisms. They existed in their latent state. So these microorganisms, whenever they were present in the latent state. So he has compared it to miasms, just like miasms, which also exist in the latent state. So as you all know, that even the miasms, they are there, present in everybody, but it is in the latent state. Under favorable environmental influences, it gets activated and the disease starts. They produce the disease due to miasmatic load present at the background. So the miasms are there, they are existing in the latent state, and the disease is produced because of the miasmatic load. So more the miasmatic load, it is difficult to treat. Less the miasmatic load, it becomes easy to treat. It is true for both the chronic and the acute miasms. So basically, in the chronic miasms, we have to see the predisposition, and in the acute miasms, we have to see the dominant miasm. The physiochemical school fully accepted the teachings of Dr. Cox and its contemporaries. So the physiochemical school, they believed in the teachings of Cox and his followers. The teachings taught that the medical professions had arrived at a means to combat the disease. So they taught that whatever medical professions were there, they had a means to combat the disease. However, they failed miserably as they failed to understand about the dynamic aspect of the disease. But no doubt that these medical professionals, they had means to combat the disease, but it was a disaster, or they failed miserably because they failed to understand that the disease is due to the dynamic aspect and not because of the presence of the microorganisms. The dynamic disease not only creates but also controls the organism. So the dynamic disease, it not only gives life to the organism, but it also controls the organism. That means when the dynamic force or the vital force is in healthy condition, it synchronizes with all the processes of the body, giving rise to an healthy state. And when it gets deranged, it gives rise to expressions through signs and symptoms. As a result, the harmonious functioning of the different aspects of the body is disturbed, as a result of which the signs and symptoms appear. The scientists of the present time deny the dynamic aspect, or they have a disbelief that there is no living vital force which animates the human body or the human organism. So the scientists of the present time, they totally or they flatly denied the dynamic aspect, and they did not believe that there was a vital force which gives life to the human body. They say it's a chemical entity only, and they believe that they can see it even in the dead person. So they believe, the scientists at the present time, they believe that it's only a chemical entity and they can even see it in a dead person. It is not demonstrable as it is behind chemistry and it was before organic chemistry. So he said that it is not demonstrable as it is behind chemistry and it was before organic chemistry. Organic chemistry came into existence by the virtue of the dynamic. Thus, to begin the study of any science, we must first look into the laws which govern it. So he says that, Dr. Allen says that if you want to study any science, first we have to see the laws which govern it, or on laws which it is based on. The applicational science must be governed by the law, and we must not strive to make the application independent of it. So whatever applicational science is there of any pathy, it has to be governed by laws. This is true when we study bacteria in relationship to the disease process. The bold experimenter will apply these toxic elements such as tuberculinum, vaccinum, or any other viruses to combat the disease state without any law or principle in their application. So Dr. G.H. Allen says that the experimenter who is bold, he will apply the different toxic elements like tuberculinum, vaccinum, without any law or principle. That means what? It was just an empirical idea they had that this remedy or this organism created such and such a disease, and if you give such and such a drug, the organism would be nullified. Thus, empirically, they made every effort to combat the disease without any inductive reason. So, empirically, they made every effort that they would combat the disease, but they did not reason out based on the truth, or that is inductive reasoning, or by using inductive logic. Thus, when a bacillus was newly discovered, they immediately declared that to cure the disease, the causa morbi must be destroyed. So, when any new bacillus the scientists had discovered, they said that first and foremost, you have to cure the disease by destroying the causa morbi. Causa morbi meaning the microorganisms or the cause of the morbid chronic disease. This sort of treatment did not bring down the mortality rate, nor did decrease the disease phenomenon. So such certain treatment, it neither brought down the mortality rate, or it did not even help in decreasing the disease phenomenon. Thus, diseases like smallpox, tuberculosis were increasing day by day. The toxic effects of these remedies played havoc on the economy of the patient, making the disease condition worse. So, whatever remedies were used, naturally, they had the toxic effects, and they had a drug-induced effect. That means the original disease was there, and on top of that, the economy of the patient was made worse by the toxic effect of the remedies, or the side effect of the remedies which they were using. We have to remember that there's a law governing life, health, disease, and cure. So Dr. Allen said, Dr. G.H. Allen says that you must always remember that there is a law which governs life, health, disease, and cure. The scientists should give the due credit to these laws and principles and make proper application for the benefit of mankind. So the scientists should definitely give due credit to these laws and principles. Why? Because the application was made which was benefited to mankind. They should perceive in depth the dynamic miasmatic, they should perceive in depth the miasmatic dynamics as told by Dynamic. So the scientists should perceive not only the materialistic aspect, but also the dynamic aspect. Dynamic aspect means what? The miasmatic dynamics as told by Dynamic. The miasm is imprinted in every individual right from birth. The miasms are responsible for the perversions taking place in the body. So whatever perversions or whatever expressions are taking place, they are because of these miasms. The miasms cause functional and structural change in the body when the disease sets in. So the different miasms are there, as you all know, and they will cause the functional changes and also the structural changes. The tubercular miasm, which is a blend of two miasms of Psora and syphilis, causes different diseases, either functional or structural. So Dr. G.H. Allen said the tubercular miasm is a combination of the psoric and the syphilitic miasm. It causes either a functional or a structural disease. So if Psora is predominant, it will cause a functional disease. If the syphilitic miasm is predominant, it will cause a structural disease. So therefore, the disease itself will travel from the reversible stage to the irreversible stage, from the Psora to the syphilitic stage. Thus, the inherited trend of the miasms will affect different persons or different families. So whatever inherited trends are there of the miasm, they will definitely affect the different persons or different families. That means here we are talking about the predisposition of the patient, which is seen through the family history and supported by the past history. That means what? Whatever inherited miasmatic trends are there, they can produce what is known as tubercular process or tubercular taints. So Dr. Allen says that it produces a tubercular process or tubercular taints. Thus, the tubercular miasm forms the predisposition. So therefore, it says the tubercular miasm will form a strong predisposition. Tubercular miasm comparison of the psoric and the syphilitic miasm. The cell of Virchow in any disease is not at first a pathological one. The change cell function can only be seen when it gets pathological. So initially, any change in the cell function is physiological, and then as it advances, it gets pathological. From this time frame is important from time of functional changes to the pathological one. So you have to see the time frame wherein the functional changes, they change into the pathological ones. Thus, all persons do not suffer, or some families suffer, as they have presence of miasm in one or both the parents. So he says that why do people suffer, or why do some people or some families suffer? Because the miasms are present in one or both the parents. He further says, however, if only one parent is affected by the miasm, then the danger of developing the disease is less in the parents. So if only one parent has the miasmatic influence, then the danger of developing the disease is much less as compared to both the parents, or both the parents have all the miasms or both the miasms, then chances will become higher. The father of cellular pathology, Professor Virchow, advocated that the structural change pathology began in the cell. So Professor Virchow, he says that the structural changes begin in the cell. The body is made up of cells or these units of cells. So he says that the body is made up of the cells or different units of cells. Thus, how does a cell become diseased when there is no apparent external cause? The answer is the bacteria. So if we ask, what is the source of bacteria, the origin and the existence? They say it is a product of inheritance. Professor Virchow says, not as he found out no evidence that tuberculosis was inherited. For even its microscopic investigation did not find any trace in the unborn babies. So Professor Virchow said that he had found out no evidence that tuberculosis was inherited, and even under microscopic investigations, he did not find that in the unborn baby. But he admitted that it could be acquired in the disease one day after the birth. Professor Virchow did not see the potentiality behind the cell, which when altered causes the disease to manifest. So Professor Virchow just concentrated on the pathology, the deviation in the cell, which gave rise to the pathology from the functional state to the pathological state, but he failed to see beyond that, what causes the alteration in the cell in order that the disease will manifest. Even the materialistic did not see this aspect. So even the people from the materialistic school also, they did not see this aspect. It was only Hahnemann who recognized the dynamic aspect of the disease and made it possible to understand it in a better manner. So it was only Dr. Hahnemann who made us understand the dynamic aspect of the disease, as a result of which we are able to understand it in a better manner. Without Hahnemann's instruction, it would be impossible to comprehend it. So without Hahnemann's instructions, we would not be able to accept the fact that the disease was dynamic in nature. So that's all. So I hope I made this chapter simple, and I hope you'll enjoyed it. If you're new to this channel, please do subscribe to the channel. Till date, this channel has 118 videos, and it has a good number of theory and viva questions and much more. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this short video.